we are very fortunate to have with us a cardiac arrest survivor and a football legend, a great friend to Nigel and I. Welcome, Glenn Hoddle.
Nice to be here.
So actually, it's what's the great line? I'm trying to remember who the rocker was.
Keith Richard.
Keith Richard, he says, it's nice to be here. He says, although given my condition, it's nice to be anywhere, frankly.
I saw him do that in Manchester and he goes, nice to be here. And he goes, actually, it's nice to be anywhere.
Brilliant. That's funny. So before we get into your heart story, Glenn, I think it's worth mentioning for the one person who's listening in who doesn't know about your amazing career that we should give them a bit of background. So if you can avoid blushing. So you've been a supporter, you've been involved with Tottenham Hotspur Football Club since you were 8 years old. You made your first appearance as a senior at 17. You notched up 490 appearances, 110 goals. I think I saw every one of them. You played over 50 times for the England senior team, and you were described as one of the most gifted and creative footballers of your generation, exhibiting sublime balance and close control, unrivaled passing and vision, and extraordinary shooting ability. But I disagree. I think you are one of the most gifted and creative footballers of any generation. And I'm given to believe that you didn't write that background.
I can't remember who I actually paid to say that, actually.
I noticed Jonathan had a big bunch of fivers in his back pocket.
So you also played for Monaco. You've been in and other teams, which we're not going to mention. You were involved in management, Swindon Town first. You also managed one of Nigel's other favourite team, Wolverhampton Wanderers, his boyhood team. And you also, of course, managed Tottenham Hotspur and the English national team. Multiple honours to your name, inducted into the National Football Hall of Fame. So I think it would be appropriate to start with a few football questions. Maybe tell us about how you came to Spurs as an 8-year-old and all the way up to your first appearance.
Yeah, I supported Tottenham at 8 when I went to see them playing a reserve game. It was just a combination game against Leicester. I'll never forget it. Leicester under the lights, and that was it. I was hooked. Went with a friend and his dad.
You grew up in the area. Yeah. You were a local lad.
Although I was born in London, in Hayes, actually, we moved out to Harlow, which was a new town back then. Yeah. And that was the closest, Tottenham and West Ham probably were the closest professional clubs. And, went to watch the reserves with a friend and his dad, and that was it really for me. And then obviously playing in Harlow, got picked up from Spurs, scouts and whatever, and Martin Chivers had a lot to do with that, actually. Saw me playing in a cup final down in Harlow. And from about 11 and a half, 12, it was there every Tuesday and Thursday night. I would get on a train, race from school down to the station, get on the train, get to White Hart Lane in the ball court, Tuesday, Thursday. Couldn't miss. I thought, back then naively, if I miss a session, they might not get me back. So, I was that mad on football. But you know what? At 12 to 15, travelling on a train on your own, stopping at Edmonton and having to do, you're seeing some sights. You couldn't do it now.
That's an education in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you remember back in the day, it was in the early 70s, that was hooligans. It was the Bother Boys.
Dodgy time.
Oh my word! I saw all sorts of things on the stations.
Skinheads.
I saw a stabbing. I saw there was prostitutes coming up. No, I didn't. But
actually, that's further down our questions.
I was only 12. No, so it was a mum, and then Dad would pick me up at 10 o'clock at Harlow Station. So anyone that asked me about hard work or when was the hardest time, that was the period, looking back in my career, going in the, getting in the first team, obviously, blah, blah, blah. It was a labour of love, football, for me.
Yeah.
But that's the groundwork, isn't it? That's what sets you up forever, isn't it?
That's the foundation you have to put in. And from 12, I didn't enjoy going on that train, running across the fields to get to the station on time, thinking I'm going to miss it. That was stressful every Tuesday and Thursday. They were the hard yards for me. To actually get there every Tuesday and Thursday and play on the weekends.
Did you think kids are like that now? Did you think
no
it's
chance.
A little bit easier, isn't it?
If you're a good player now at a top club at 12, 13, they'll get picked up by a car to go training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pick them up by a limousine car to pick them up.
So they're special before they even start.
Well, they think they're special before they start. Yeah, that's the problem.
I remember when I was my dad worked in the rag trade in London, and back in the day, players didn't have a lot of money. They used to come up to the showroom of the company he worked at to pick up dresses after like they'd do the shows for their wives and girlfriends. And my dad knew a lot of the older players, Jimmy Greaves and Martin Peters, and you know, at the end of the game, in fact, we went over to Dave Mackay's house once for tea after a game. Poached eggs, mashed potatoes, and a mug of tea. And we went on the bus from the old Spurs. The players today, they're divorced from the fan base. And the money obviously is a huge separation.
I think that's life, Jonathan, in general, isn't it? But in football particularly, we have perhaps lost touch with the fans. And if they have to do something, it's because they're semi-forced to do it, actually. There's a lot of good things they still do, footballers, you know. It doesn't get heard about. There's still a lot of positivity. We always hear about the poor stories and the bad stories.
Yeah, but you also see, Tottenham have got this young player, Destiny Udogie, who I've seen interviewed. He's, I think, 21 years old. Clearly a fantastic footballer, but he comes across as a fantastic young man. Cultured, humble, got his stuff together, and you get the impression that things that he will do, he'll stay in touch. Son Heung-min, who I know is adored by everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the difference as well, rightly so. I think that when I think back going into an apprenticeship, we hardly did anything about media work. Well, we did none. It was all about football, football, football. We did the jobs around the stadium. It was like a second home to you, which was a bit of a hardship, which I think the younger players could do with a little bit of that. But they do get brought up differently on the football pitch now and what's the facilities. But I think mentally they're growing up quicker as well. They understand the modern day scenarios with the media, with social networks and all them things. It's a different ball game completely.
Well, given your involvement in the media, in commentary, and you've been involved for many years, I do wonder a little bit about who's tutoring these young men about their use of social media and how easy it is to text and basically potentially muck up your entire life or offend other people.
It's a very difficult line, and I think it's a modern day thing. I think technology is one thing that's brought us on a lot, but unfortunately, it's like anything. There's a negative and a positive. There's a lot of good things can be used from social media, and we see this every day. There's a focus on the negativity. The problem is when you're a footballer now and you're earning the money that they're earning, there's a bit of jealousy out there as well. There's no doubt about that. From journalists to fans. And there's obviously your tribal fan for your club, so against another players. But back in the day, it was just what was written about you.
Yeah.
Everyone else had an opinion down the pub or in the cafe. Weren't going to get through to you. But nowadays, that's different. Someone behind their phone can go bang, 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 say dreadful things about you. Then it's the test of the player. And some of these kids are only 18, 19.
Yes.
And if they read that and they take it on board, then that's completely something that we didn't experience as players.
Yeah.
It was tough if you got criticised in the paper.
In the press, yeah.
And if those people read that, it was 1 million people or whatever their readership would be. But that was it. Whereas now it's can be millions of people reading stuff, and a lot of it can be untrue, and it depends on the kids.
And it's their archives, isn't it? Because back in the day of just papers, they used to say, "Well, it's tomorrow's fish and chip wrappings," isn't it?
Exactly.
But now it's their archive forever.
It
whether
can
it's true or
stay
not.
there, and people can debate it for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
About a certain thing. So it is. That's when mentally it's a different game for them.
Well,
it really is.
That's a great point, Glenn, because we hear a lot. We don't hear a lot, but we hear something from some players having the strength to come out and talk about the mental health challenges, because it's being in the public eye. Having known many people like yourself who've been very, very prominent, it's exhausting, and you feel for these. And again, remembering they're young kids. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. With all this exposure, it must be exhausting mentally. Did you see any of that back when you were playing? Did you come across players, obviously don't mention names, but who you knew were struggling?
Yes, I think there were. Back then, no one would come out and say things. That was the thing. It was hidden. But you could tell when some players were not coping with not playing well, getting criticism, maybe injuries was something, and having that lack of belief in themselves. And I think that's one of the things that you have to have as a sportsman, whether it's football or anything else. You have to have that inner steel, that character. Doesn't matter about your talent. You've got to have that. Nowadays, you've got to have it in bundles. You've always had to have it. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit different because I mentioned earlier about I was an apprentice at Tottenham. That was a hard time because the pros in the first team dressing room didn't make it easy for you. Deliberately. You know, it was a tough school, particularly at Tottenham. We have a few Joe Kinnear and Cyril Knowles. I was an apprentice, and Terry Naylor, and it was a hard school. Yeah. But in some ways, it was grounding you. It was making you a character to actually go in there, do the jobs in front of them, and get the stick that you would get. Yeah. But it was actually building your character up, and
same thing in medicine, Glenn. I mean. Yeah. You know, we're told, oh, you know, that those sort of behaviors aren't tolerated nowadays. We don't tolerate, or hazing, as they call it in America and like in the armed forces. But it's kind of part of the process to some degree. I mean, it can cross the line.
And those lads nowadays, as a footballer, are not getting that because that wouldn't happen in a dressing room now. But what they're getting is what we just spoke about, the social media. You're getting people from afar saying dreadful things about you and having an opinion about you. So that is where you either, it can crush you or it can strengthen you.
And people
so it's a different scenario that's making your character stronger. And you have to be strong. You have to be able to cut off from it. You have to know yourself a little bit. And this is what youngsters, if I was talking to any youngsters, that's the thing that I've learned in life is I had a inner core belief about my ability, about what I wanted to achieve. I wasn't going to change the way I played. The way we play in England now is how they used to play on the continent. Yeah. In my era, we didn't play like this. The ball was in the air. Yeah. The pitches were poor. It was too much of a power. It was physical, you know, and I weren't going to give in. I knew how I wanted to play football. So I had to fight against the tide. So you had to show a lot of character. Yeah. And that's what these kids are having to do now, for a different reason, in a different way.
Tell us about some of your favourite football memories. You told us about your, coming through the ranks.
Have you got 5 days? I mean... Yeah.
For Tottenham, for England, frankly, for
one
some
of the
those
things,
other clubs.
But there's so many. But I tell you what did have a real influence on me, and you'll be surprised. We used to get tickets for Tottenham when we were schoolboys. So when I was from 12 to 15, for 2 seasons, the tickets were right down on the red ground, the little stalls that were in front of the terracing. Mm-hmm. So you stick your leg out, you could trip the linesman up. You were that close. So to watch a professional game when you were 12, I remember watching George Best, Bobby Charlton-Law, Man United coming to Chelsea games against Tottenham in the semi-final League Cups, Arsenal games, but you could smell the liniment on the legs of the players. You could hear the verbal. Yeah. You could hear how physical it was. Yeah. The clashes of the stud and the pads and the battles that were going on. It was just, wow. There's me playing up against the wall as a kid, producing my techniques and left foot, right foot, outside, inside the foot. I thought that's what football was all about. But then I went home one day and I remember the Chelsea game, Mike England and Peter Osgood kicking lumps out of each other. And I said to Dad, I've realised, Dad, it's not just about the technique. Mm-hmm. It's so physical. Yeah. And I'm going to have to meet fire with fire if I'm going to make it. And that's what was so impressionable at a very, very young age. And, there's loads of things I could talk about going into my career, but that always stuck with me. How physical and how I was going to have to step up because I just thought
did you?
I had to.
Yeah.
But what it did, it taught me that it wasn't all it wasn't
fancy pants.
No, it wasn't all creativity, technical play. Someone's there to take your living. Someone's there to do you. Someone's there to take you out the game.
And you knew in any given game who the hard man was, who you were going to have to stay away from.
But
in those
12,
days,
13...
they wouldn't balk at injuring you or something like that, would they?
No,
I mean, it was almost...
Oh, without a doubt, that went on. That went on. I knew that was got a fascinating story that would last for the whole of the podcast. That guy that tried to wipe me out in the European game, and over the two legs. But that did happen, and you could do that. That's why it's very difficult nowadays to judge players back in the day to now. Everyone says, "Oh, Messi this and Ronaldo," but it's a completely different game. Back then, the Maradonas and all the players that were creative, the rules allowed you could take them out. You get 3 or 4 tackles, pulling the shirt. Yeah. You got away with them things. I always look at Messi or Ronaldo and the great players now, Mbappe at the moment. You'd have to take them back and see how they would perform under those pitches, under those circumstances, rather than Maradona in this era.
You did all right.
You did all right. On carpet pitches, no one can touch Maradona. Oh, my word.
Well, you're on a carpet pitch in your slippers.
Yeah,
it's beautifully lit. You haven't got a leather football that weighs about 3 tons.
And you've got no player that can go out and do you.
No, that's right.
They can't touch you nowadays. They can't man-for-man mark you anymore. Whereas Maradona, when I went to France, I experienced, we didn't man-for-man mark in England. Yeah. On occasions, on certain games I was, maybe a cup final, I remember QPR and Waddle stayed man-for-man with me. But when I went to France, being a number 10, didn't have a number 10 in England. That's the way we played. But then you were man-marked, and that was a challenge for me, but it was one of them things why I wanted to go abroad. Yeah. But it was just shows you that the difference now is, if my word, but I think the question mark is, how would Messi play? How would Ronaldo play back in the day then? Yeah. They wouldn't be able to do...
If you dropped them back in that scenario,
they'd still be brilliant, don't get me wrong. They'd be fantastic. Yeah. But the other way, Maradona coming with those rules now and the carpets and oh my word, it would be just... Incredible.
And taking it the other way, looking at players from back in the day, how would Jimmy Greaves play today, or George Best?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. And that's the comparison of where the game is and how you can't really compare at the moment. How there's such a change in the game and the rules and everything.
So tell us a little bit about your move into management and what life lessons that taught you, and how, because a lot of players with your sort of approach to the game. Maurizio Pochettino was a pretty scary defender, right? Solid bloke, didn't make a muck about. Tottenham's current manager, Postecoglou, wasn't a world-famous creative player, but players like you who were. What did you bring to the game, and what did management teach you?
Great example of what you're saying there, Jonathan, was Keith Birkinshaw. Yeah. With the team that he built. Yeah. And the way that we played. He joined in some of the five-a-sides, and Keith wouldn't mind me saying he played for Workington, I think. Mm-hmm. And but everything Keith wasn't as a player, he wanted to build as a manager with his team. Yeah. And but my philosophy, I've always been a thinker. I've always been somebody, even when I was younger, thought a lot about the game and took things on board quite easily. Had a great imagination as a kid, always have. So I had this going off inside of me, but never really thought I'd go into management, to be honest. It was only when I went to Monaco, when I was over there, had a bad injury with my knee, and started to look at the game differently. And Arsene Wenger was the one that said, Glenn, have you thought about coaching or going into management? And I said, no, I haven't really. But then this year out that I had started to give me a semi sort of apprenticeship of, what would I do?
Looking 32, at the game. 33?
Yeah, I was probably 32 when I had an infection in my knee. Yeah. So I started to look differently, and I looked at the opponents in a different way, and I looked at the way we were playing. And then, so it was like another set of curtains opened up for me. Right. And that's really where I thought, okay. I tried to get fit, came back to England, tried to get fit, but I was
player manager for.
I didn't realise I was going to play. Team. I didn't think I was going to. I didn't think I was going to become a player again. I thought my career had finished. I'd been out 2 years. But then Swindon came knocking, and that was my first step into management. And it literally was, you know, Jonathan, a player one day trying to get back after an injury.
Yeah.
Been out 2 years, training at Chelsea, funny enough. And
You're
then
not
suddenly,
allowed to say that word here.
and then suddenly, bang.
Yeah.
They're asking you to manage a second division.
I was going to ask you about that, because it was that sudden. Because I would imagine nowadays you have to go and you have to you do your apprenticeship and probably have to do exams or something like that. You know, who would know? But
exactly.
It's like one day player,
it was one
next
day there,
manager.
and then I had to think. Peter Day, who was ex secretary at Tottenham when I was a player, he was the CEO at Swindon. Phoned me up. We want you as manager. Ozzy had gone to Newcastle, and it was literally overnight. I was becoming a manager in my head. God dear, you know. And I thought, I'm not sure my knee's going to be good enough to play. So I thought, that's exactly what I wanted. It was like planned, beautifully planned, but it wasn't in my hands. But looking back, maybe it was in my hands, and that's what happened. So I took the jump and managed to still play for a couple of years and hobble about with me knee, but. We got up promotion, but it was a fantastic time, Swindon. I really loved it because
you told us a story.
As a
You told us a story, Glenn, about your time at Swindon.
Yeah, there's so many. There were
a lot. There was one about the kit man,
and Kevin Morris, the physio, who was a funny guy. Bless him, Eddie as well. Eddie Buckley, the kit man, was probably 80 plus, and but that was a part of the club. The laundry lady, everything, and that's what was great. It was people. You know, as a manager, I was thinking, football. But when I become manager, you realise that there's people behind
family.
It all. It's a family. It's your second family, and you have to have that energy for everyone as a manager. It's not just the players, tactics, the techniques, the da-da-da.
You know, there's a great story, Glenn, about Jack Kennedy visiting NASA, and he, before the moon landings, and he was meeting lots of people, and he comes across a guy in a corridor who's got like a mop and bucket, and he says, "What's your job here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm helping to put a man on the moon, Mr. President."
Brilliant answer.
Isn't that a great answer?
Brilliant answer. And I'll tell you, I won't tell you the stories about Kevin and the Eddie Buckley because they're fantastic stories. They're really funny. But I'll tell you what happened the first day that I went in. So the first, and this is similar to what I was saying about how you quickly learn that it's about people. So my first day, so I'm excited, bit nervous, got to go in there and, I've never done it before. There's a load of players going to be ready. So anyway, 9 o'clock, knock on the door. I'm thinking, it's probably a player on loan or something, or a player about a new contract that Ozzy had probably said so. Anyway, I open the door and there's a little lady and she says, "I'm Jeannie. I'm the laundry lady." She looked a bit worried. I said, "Oh, Jeannie, come in." So I'm sitting there. She's sitting across my desk. So she says, really nervous looking, really a little bit uptight. And she said, "Oh, Mr. Ardiles and the board, that before they went, he said I could have 2 washing machines." He said, "And I'm really worried that I'm not sure whether we can get them still because Mr. Ardiles is gone. You're the manager." And I could tell that she'd had sleepless nights about this washing machine. So I'm thinking to myself, unusual, didn't expect this first thing. So I'm saying, "Look, I'm pretty sure, I'll see Peter Day afterwards, I'm pretty sure that your washing machines would be fine, And I said, I'll come back to you after training." So she goes out, shuts the door, and I sit in my office, and Johnny Gorman's my assistant, is just tucked round the corner. I went, "Bloody hell, John." I said, "I didn't realise my first buy in the transfer were 2 bloody washing machines."
That's right, yeah. Brilliant.
But what it taught me was that she was the laundry lady. All the guys go in the laundry, they have a cup of tea with her.
Yeah.
If she's down, if she's nervous, if she's worried about something, the club and she doesn't get her washing machines, the club's crap.
Yeah.
The club's a downer.
Yeah.
And it has an effect on the players. And then the groundsman was the same. And as Swindon was a great learning.
And it's the converse, isn't it? Because if they're up and they're happy and somebody can have a chat or a confidential sort of thing, it just
So coming back to what
mood.
Jonathan just said about the guy cleaning the floor, Jeannie, the laundry lady, what do you do? laundry, you do the laundry. No, I make sure we get 3 points every week.
Absolutely.
I'm a part of that, So it's amazing how it's people that any business, any club, it's people at the end of the day. You think you're going to this club and it's about the football, getting the results. Of course, you've got to get results. But how do you get results? It's the people involved. Yeah. And it's not just the players and your staff. And it's the whole family, as you say. And that taught me a lot at Swindon. But we did have some laughs, I've got to say. We played some wonderful football there.
Yes,
we played some beautiful football, 3 at the back, Yeah. Everyone keeps saying to you, like, they've invented the wheel, 3 at the back, It does make me laugh because we did it straight away at Swindon and we played some lovely stuff, but we did have some characters there. It was fantastic times.
We're going to come on to an important day in your life, and on that same day, something else happened. The chairman of Leicester City died in a terrible helicopter crash, and people look at what Leicester City achieved, and they had Jamie Vardy and they had a couple of other good players, but they were a team. They were very much a team, and there was very much an ethos, and I think it came from the chairman on down. There was this feeling that this was like a family club. So I think the ethos you're suggesting is great, but if Nigel's okay with it, I'd like to switch the discussion a little bit, because as well as being a great footballer and having an amazing career as a manager, you were also a pop star. And you recorded a song with Chris Waddle.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was some experience, that was, because I love my music. I've always loved my music ever since I was a kid. And I can sing. I know I can sing. But never played any instruments. I think that missed a generation because my son's in music and he's got a band and everything. But it was just, we didn't want to make a record, but it was a fella called Pat Mitchell that kept badgering us about...
You and Chris?
Yeah, about doing a song, because he'd got us a couple of sponsored cars at Tottenham and we went to a do for them in the middle of the season. We'd had a good win. We got up on the stage. They all got us up. There's about 1,000 people there. They got us up on the stage. We'd had a few beers, me and Chris, and we were singing with the band. And we come off, and he says, "You sounded great." Yeah, we sounded great. So he said, "No, I've got a friend, blah, 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 who writes songs." He said, "We should make a song. So for 3 months, he badgered the life out of us. "We don't want to make a song. We don't want to make a record, Pat. Go away." It was 87. We got to the cup final as well, strangely enough. And anyway, we went and saw the guy, Bob Pusey, and he we still didn't really want to do a song. But in the end, we listened to the Diamond Lights. It was a ballad at the time. I'm thinking, me and Chris can't do a ballad. So we had to...
It's a little bit suspect that you singing a ballad to each other.
It was like, it was sort of livened up a little bit, and then we ended up recording it and down there, and it just took off. It had a life of its own. But the funniest story I've got to say is, like, we did the video. So that was 2 months goes by, and then so Pat phones me up one day. He said, "I want you to go on Top of the Pops." Honestly, my heart dropped and my backside dropped as well. I went, "Top of the Pops? Don't be so stupid, Pat." He said, "No, there's a live show. You got to go on Top of the Pops. They want next month." So you didn't sing live then, but you had to record it on the Thursday. It used to be done on the Wednesday, goes out on a Thursday, but once every month, because of union rules, you had to be live. So if we fell off the stage, you fell off the stage. There was no cut, do it again. Yeah. So that was nerve-wracking, but nerve-wracking anyway, going on Top of the Pops.
I mean, that's the ultimate, isn't it?
Oh, my word, Nigel, I'm envisaging us, and anyway, so I said to Pat 1 week later, I said, "By the way," I said, "it's so long since we sung the song." I said, "Make sure the driver that picks us up at Cheshunt, the training ground, we had to go to Shepherd's Bush. So we trained first. I said, make sure he's got a cassette of the cassette days, a cassette of the song."
So
he said, "Why is that?"
He
said, "Because we've forgotten the words. We've got to sing it in the back of the..." So we go all the way down from Cheshunt singing to get to know the words, and we're going in front of millions of people on Top of the Pops. And I've got to say, by the time we got to Shepherd's Bush, I think the driver knew it better than we did.
You should have invited him on.
It was so nerve-wracking.
Oh, boy.
Because of that as well, we were out of our depth, we were out of our, comfort zone.
Brilliant, though.
But in the end, we just had to go for it. I went for it. I said to Chris, we got a load of beers in the afternoon because it was so nerve-wracking. And I said to the fella, go and get a case of beers because if we don't have a few drinks, we're not going to be able to do this. It was that scary.
I want to circle back to the singing at the end and let everyone know that you're still at it. You've recorded some great songs. We're going to put links in the show notes and on the website and everything in our socials so people can hear you. And I mean, I think you should, Top of the Pops producers, if you're listening, he's here. You can get his phone number.
But it's interesting. It's interesting what you were saying before. You said, I picked up on that. You were saying, I'm a thinker. And you said you've always been a thinker. And then you were talking about how you took on management. Because basically you've got a creative personality, haven't you?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I could see how that goes into performing and how it goes into singing. And I'm just sort of sitting there thinking that. And it's interesting, that, isn't it?
You know what? You know, they say, I'm a great believer that we create.
Yeah.
And looking back in my life, even from when I was a young kid and some of the stories that we talked about, I had an incredible imagination.
Yeah.
I was in my garden in front of 100,000 people with Bobby Moore behind, and I was doing, in the World Cup in 1966, 1970. I had this unbelievable imagination, and I've always had that. And I've had it on the pitch.
Yeah.
But I've had it in my life in loads of different things. But they say, be careful for what you dream about. Because I remember I love my music. And when I did actually put a ball down in the end, when I was younger, 15, 16, I was into music, I would have concerts. I'd be on a stage I'd have my tennis racket as my guitar. I'd be listening to the Eagles or to whatever group it would be. Yeah. And I would visualise myself being on a stage, singing. Yeah. And I would be playing guitar. Well, I'd be playing me tennis racket. Yeah. But it's amazing now. I was actually there. I created this in my mind time after time.
How amazing.
The belief
suddenly,
system, right?
One day it hit me after I'd done Top of the Pops. I went, you know what? I imagined that. Way back in my life, but it actually happened.
Well, you made it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't happen to you. You made it happen.
Exactly.
It's a belief system.
I believe that.
Do you still, so we know what to bet on for the future?
I do that every day.
Yeah, what's next?
Every day.
What's next?
And that's
Let me write this down, Glenn.
That's the message. You create. We are creators.
You know,
We are creators. Every single day, we can create our lives.
Yeah. There's the great thing that if
he gets a little bit of luck, he doesn't get a little bit of luck. We are creators. We're very powerful beings, and I'm learning that more and more and more.
Yeah.
And there has been a change on even more magnified since I had my cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating and it's fantastic. And that's, looking back, I was like that as a kid. I just imagine. I was in my bedroom. I'd have a sponge ball, and I was playing against Man United. I was playing against Portugal. I was playing in the World Cup in the 60s. I had this I could envisage 100,000 people watching me.
Glenn, that if you think you're going to be a success or you think you're going to be a failure, you're right.
Of course.
Right. And the way Nigel and I view medicine is, people have said, well, how can you laugh about such and such? Well, life should be joyous. And even in the face of, great challenges, great barriers, you should find joy because life should be joyous. And I want to get on to that.
Yeah.
I want to take you back to your birthday because October 27th is your birthday. But this is 2018.
Yeah.
I want to set the scene first. Talk to us about your family health background. Any immediate family members with heart disease?
No.
Right?
No, there wasn't. No, that we had, my dad had passed and my brother, unfortunately, passed very young, but they were not heart-related.
It was disconnected, right?
Yeah.
And you hadn't had any problems yourself? Not a smoker?
Well, no, not a smoker, definitely not. Not overly a drinker. My diet was pretty good, actually. I'd given up red meat, any meat, actually, in 1988 when I was out in Monaco.
Done a bit of exercise over the years.
Of course, yeah. Contrary to what people said, I stood in the middle of the pitch and didn't move. But yeah, but no. Yes, I got to say, I would have said, pretty healthy at 61.
We've been talking before you joined us, Glenn, about the risk factors for cardiovascular disease.
Oh, sorry, just to cut in, I did have AF. I've had AF since...
atrial fibrillation,
yeah. Way back. So that would probably be in 2004-ish.
Right.
And presumably, when you had that, you were thoroughly investigated, had all the tests and showed
Nigel,
nothing.
this is what's so weird. I had my breathing had changed a little bit. So in the May, before my birthday on this date, on the October, I had a checkup and they changed my medication a little bit because I said my breathing's gone a bit. You know, if I go uphill and on the golf course, if I go uphill, if I start breathing. So they looked into things. They did a few checks and whatever they did, and I went to Birmingham to do that. And so that was in the May. Well, I was staggered, obviously, with this.
Well, let's get into it, but I think it's key to know. We've known you a good number of years. You've always looked in good shape, and you've always been active. Okay, not playing professional football, but I know you're an avid golfer, and you walk around, and you're always kind of with it, and you have regular checkups, right? So the 2 weeks leading up to that day, earlier in October, had you noticed any changes?
Looking back, I've tried my best to think back. Was there any sort of, the only thing I could say possibly would have been for about 6 months before. There was times in the middle of the day, if I was going off to a game or whatever, I'd have a chat with my driver, Jono, and if it was 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, whatever. When I think back, I was like, "Whoa, Jono, I need a nap," and that wasn't me really. I felt tired at the wrong time of day, really, when I shouldn't be tired. I'd had a good sleep, and then I'm thinking, why am I so tired? And that's the only thing I can really put down.
That's a key thing because people they call it the prodrome, the thing that happens before. What are the clues? So for the benefit of people listening, notice changes. So let's go to that day. Football mad guy. I know you're dedicated to your work. You turn up at the studio. I believe they had a birthday cake for you, right?
They did.
And then you and Robbie Savage decided to play some football table tennis.
Yeah.
Describe, not what other people saw, but what did you feel and experience?
This is the scary thing about it. So I can only remember 4 things of the day. So Jono, my driver, I remember shutting the door to Jono and said, "I'll see you about 5:30, whatever the time we were coming off here." So I shut the door. I can remember that. I remember Robbie and Incy was on the show, giving me a cake. And I said something about, you got the numbers the wrong way round or whatever, it was 61. I can remember that. And the other thing I can remember was because Harry Redknapp was on the show, and he was going into the jungle in a few weeks after. Yeah. I remember a lizard.
It was a celebrity TV show.
Yeah. I remember a lizard, and I remember telling my girls and Jamie, my son, afterwards, and they think it's the medication. I was saying, "No, I saw a lizard. And they're going, "Yeah, all right, Dad."
In the studio.
Well, because he was going on, they brought on a lizard. There was a snake as well, by all accounts. Sorry, snake, but I can't remember you. But I remember the lizard. And I remember us all being shocked, and I was running away, I think, and Incy ran away. And that's the only things I remember. And I remember my son was the first to he was in the ambulance. He was in London. So, and I remember opening my eyes in the ambulance and seeing his face, squeezing his hand, and then the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital recovering from, they put some stents in.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Before we get into the hospital,
I can't remember that other than the 4 things.
So what were you told that happened? And tell us about Simon Daniels.
Well, what I was told, they're the 4 things I remember. I was playing football with, as you say, like a table tennis type of thing, techno, and I can't remember any of that. And they say I just fell backwards really heavily, smashed my head against the floor, collapsed. And it was only because Simon had...
he was a lighting guy,
and it was right at the end of the show. This is what fascinates me. No, it's the wrong word, fascinate. I was dead. But
apart from that.
Yeah, it could have been in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
But it was almost like the credits were coming up and it was just closing down.
So it's still being filmed?
Well, it could have been. It was being filmed.
Yeah.
But they reckon it's seconds that they write and finish because we were running a bit late, and I collapsed. So Simon Daniels was a volunteer policeman, a sound engineer, who popped into the studio. Thank God he did. He might have stayed in the studio outside in the sound booth. He popped in, and the commotion was everyone run to me. I collapsed, smashed my head against the floor by all accounts, because I got taken first of all to St. Thomas's to have a scan on my head first. But Simon, they tell me, just ripped my top off, bang, and did CPR on me. And he did it for nearly 20 minutes. He thinks I was probably gone for about 7 or 8 minutes where there was no pulse. And he just kept going and kept going. And if it wasn't for Simon,
That's amazing.
I wouldn't be sitting here now. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
And the defibrillator
I was gonna say,
came along, but it just proves to me afterwards, I've done a lot of work with defibrillators and CPR now. But CPR is probably more important than defibrillators, actually.
Yeah.
Where's the defibrillator now? Where would it be?
Yeah.
But if someone does CPR, that's the one that...
Do you find that you
immediately-
walk into a building now and you see the AED, the automatic defibrillator?
Yeah, I do. Sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean...
Because my guess is most people wouldn't even know what one
wouldn't
looks
know where
like.
exactly.
And I want you to challenge everyone listening in. Do you know how to do CPR?
I do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But do they know how to do it? Because
Well,
it's the
what
one thing
yeah.
anyone can do
Yeah.
to save a life.
Yeah, no, CPR, it's the thing that saves you from a cardiac arrest, because you have to be there within 3 minutes, as you know.
Yeah.
And if you're not, after 3 minutes, you haven't got much chance. Your chances go down very quickly, 10% every minute.
Yeah.
So that's more important actually than the defibrillator. But it's important for people. Every time I do a Q&A or an evening with, I always ask, we get onto the story of my cardiac arrest, but I always first say, anyone hands up who's done CPR, and there's always a quarter.
Yeah.
There's never half or majority, 3/4. So it's so important. And I remember doing it with all my family afterwards, obviously. All my
Everyone
family
should
did.
learn CPR.
Yeah.
Everyone should be a blood donor. Everyone should be an organ donor.
Yeah.
And we could save a load of lives.
And have your blood pressure done regular.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's...
prevention side, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Check your lipids, exercise, all that.
We've just done
stuff.
a campaign for that. Actually, I did it at Forest Arsenal game last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going around different clubs now and getting fans to go in and have their blood pressure done. And I had a lovely tweet from a guy that heard about TalkSport up in, was he Scotland, I think? And he heard it on the radio, went in and bought one, and he said, I'm tweeting this from hospital. They rushed him in because he's
so high.
So if it's just saved one person.
Yeah. No,
and he said, I think I would have been in big trouble if I hadn't heard your interview. So that makes it all worthwhile when you hear something like that.
So anyone listening to us today, get a blood pressure machine, check yourself, check your family, make sure you have your regular checks from your
because
GP.
it's prevention.
Absolutely.
And it's such a simple thing, you know. It takes 1 minute of your day and it can save your life.
Absolutely.
So you went into hospital, you had definitive treatment, you had some stents put in, all the rest of it, and you've been in good shape ever since, right?
Well, I had stents put in. That was just a holding position because my kidneys, because I don't forget, when Simon did his wonderful job of keeping me alive, he broke 7 of my ribs.
Yeah.
I only thought we had 6, by the way, if I'm honest.
Well, those checking our socials are looking at the video.
That's women, because in the Garden of Eden, didn't he take... No, that was one of Alan's ribs.
Check out the socials and a picture of Slim, who's sitting next to me on the couch.
One of the nurses made me laugh in St. Bart's, which were incredible hospital, by the way. But she said, "Oh, Mr. Hoddle, how many ribs did he break?" I said 7. She went, "Oh, that's a good one." Which made me laugh, and then I was in agony.
That's not good. That's a bit cruel.
Agony.
But they say that if you're doing CPR properly, I mean, you see television, you see somebody's elbows going up and down, but we all know you really need to compress it, 2 or 3 centimetres, don't you, to get...
Absolutely.
Because you're trying to squeeze something behind some bone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and that's why the ribs go, obviously. But
I don't know whether you've ever done it, but when
7.
you do it, you get crunching.
I've done
loads
CPR
of times.
many times. So, Glenn, you were telling us about... during your playing days, about people kicking lumps out of each other, and you've had a fair number of injuries in your past. I want to get on to talk about Achilles tendonitis, your ankle at some point, but tell us about your different...
I suppose the 2 major ones there's a few actually. I had Achilles operation that I had to... Achilles on the sheath there that strangled that. And then obviously at Monaco, I had what I would call a normal cartilage out, and 5 weeks
in
later... On my knee, yeah. And 5 weeks later, due to, I felt it was going really well. I was running and ready to go back into the first team, really. I said to Arsene Wenger, who's been manager in Monaco, he said, "You're looking good." I said, "Yeah, I'll be fit next week." And then suddenly I just was one afternoon doing some more rehab running, and I just broke down on the floor, and I was like, someone was putting like a hot knitting needle through my knee. The pain was that excruciating, and I'd got an infection from
the operation.
From the operation, maybe the injection that I had an injection to draw some of the liquid away, whatever it was.
Yeah, you can get an effusion fluid.
Yeah, so it was either possibly from the operation. And I'd had an infection. I looked down on my knee and it was just purple, completely purple from below and above. And wow, that kept me out for 2 years. And I didn't think I was going to play ever again, to be honest. That's when I came back to England and in the end went to Swindon as player manager. But so those were massive. They were big. And I had a cartilage out on my right side when I was 14.
14?
Yeah, I had a complete tear.
Yeah.
You know, what they called it was a bucket handle. That's it.
Yeah.
And I remember taking it, I haven't got it now, but I remember taking it home. And but at 14, you know, that was tough. That was a career threatening.
It's a pity I haven't still got it. We could have had it mounted and had it in the
could have
trophy room at Tottenham, couldn't we?
Well, yeah, we won't go down that route. There'd be plenty of room on the sideboard. Put it
unfortunately.
But no, so those two, and I suppose looking back, even when I was a kid, you know, my career nearly didn't start before it, you know, it was over before it started, as the saying, isn't it? Because I got hit with a cricket ball right under the eye and nearly lost my eyesight. I was captain of the cricket team, put myself silly mid on. We had a really fast bowler and he bowled a full toss, and I just remember, I can envisage it now, just see this red blur coming at me.
Oh my God.
And it hit me just under the eye. So I had a hematoma behind, and I had to lay with my head for 2 weeks in the hospital with my head looking at the ceiling, not moving left or right, sort of pinned it.
Yeah.
Because if I moved it too much, it was 50-50. I remember my mum breaking down and crying, and I said, "What's the matter?" And she wouldn't tell me, but they did tell me that you have to keep your head still. So I remember the bloody ceiling in Bishop Stortford Hospital in the eye clinic there. So 2 weeks staring at
There's a plaque on the ceiling now, isn't there? I think. Yeah.
Sorry,
there's a plaque on the ceiling. Yeah.
This crack on the ceiling.
Glenn Hoddle looked at this spot.
Yeah. So that was nearly my career finished before it started. Yeah, and I was only about 13, 14 there, maybe 14 and a half. Yeah. So I had a real period with the cartilage out, and then almost losing my eyesight, and that would have been it. But thank God I kept my head still.
That's quite amazing to have the cartilage thing as well at that age, and then not develop serious arthritis.
You know what? I've got to touch some wood here. That was my right knee. I've never had a problem with it.
Yeah.
Ever through the career, even now. But this one, the left one, when they go, and that one was with a scar old days when they used to open you up, and whereas this was keyhole. And it went awfully wrong, and that's the one that's been giving me the problem. But I've never had a problem with the right one. Incredible.
Yeah. Well, long may that continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. During the course of your career, the role that medics, doctors, physios play in football has changed dramatically.
Oh, my word.
Bring back the magic sponge, I say.
So, exactly.
What have your experiences?
There's so many, actually. We had an interesting doctor at Tottenham, Dr. Curtin, which I've got a great...
That's bad news for a doctor, isn't it? Call him Curtin.
Yeah. Pull
yourself together.
There's a little story from Kevin Morris when I was at Swindon, when I was manager. Was such a character. He really was a character. He had a glass eye. And real character from up north he was. And anyway, I remember one day that Sean Close was ex-Tottenham player. He was playing. I'm on the bench. So Sean goes down over at the county ground. There's a little sort of dip on the pitch, and you couldn't quite see over the far side. It was like a camber on the pitch. And Kevin was sort of doodling, like, you know, daydreaming a little bit, and all the subs went, "Sean's down, Kev, Sean's down," you know, and he's jumped up, panicked a little bit, and thought, "Oh, okay, referee's waved him on. He's come sprinting over. All the crowd are, you know. And he goes over to the corner, and Sean's laying in agony. He's got whacked on the ankle, and he's in pain. And Sean tells the story after. So he gets over there, and because he's jumped up and panicked so quickly, he's got there, he's forgot his bag. He's got no bag. He's just there on his own with Sean. And Sean can suss that. He's going, what's the matter? And Kev just went, no, not to worry, Sonny. Then. So he got his handkerchief out, wiped his brow, and went, you'll be fine, son. You'll be fine. And then run back to the bench.
Brilliant.
And Sean told the story. I think we had a win, so you can imagine, you know, we were having a giggle about that. But there was loads of different things that
I always wonder, Glenn, you know, any bloke who's played football and has received a football in, should we say, a delicate area.
Oh yeah.
It hurts like the dickens, right? And you see the physio sometimes go on, and you think, what's he going to do?
That's where the magic sponge comes in, doesn't it? You just stick it down there, give it a quick wipe.
Can I say this? But no, I won't say it.
Yeah, you can. You can say anything.
Well, that's where a female physio net, which you can see nowadays, might have been quite handy. But handy. No,
they're going down like flies, wouldn't they? You know?
Absolutely.
Every 5 minutes.
Yeah. You get a hit on the head. Oh
that's right.
No. On a serious note, I remember getting, in the wall. I was one in the wall. We had to line the wall up. The goalies normally, I remember getting one right in the, the manhood. And there is nothing, your balls just feel as if they're under your ears.
That's right.
If you can explain it to
Well, you
to
feel
anyone.
the pain around your belly button.
It's unbelievable. But it was, and there's nothing you can do. And there's nothing anyone can do, really, apart from probably a wry smile.
Well, there's the
that well-known curative thing.
There's the politically incorrect joke that people will say that getting a kick right there is like it's like the pain of childbirth.
Oh,
and
don't tell the women that.
That's brave.
Yeah, well, you don't tell. But then some bloke says, he says, I don't think so. He says, you don't hear any bloke saying, I wouldn't mind being kicked in the nuts
again. Yeah. Second time round. You're right there, yeah.
So tell us.
And it's a fallacy about, on a cold day it would hurt. And it doesn't matter if it's bloody August, 80 degrees. It's the same pain.
I remember as a kid in the playground, and you'd be there in those days in your shorts, and it'd be a cold day, and you'd have those terrible balls which you'd have like the knobbly bits on. Somebody kicked one of those against your leg. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
You'd be dancing around the playground for a while, wouldn't you?
The lace on the
great
top
mark
there.
on your leg or
I
something.
always thought there are players who run around without shin pads on. I know
we're not allowed nowadays, but they used to be. They weren't compulsory, but now you got to have shin pads.
Yeah. I'm thinking, why would you not do it?
Yeah, I didn't like wearing them at the beginning, actually. I was one that didn't... I remember I played with Tony Galvin. Tony hated, and he cut them really down small.
Yeah.
But if you look at Tony's shins when he was in... Probably now, but even worse. There was cuts, lumps and cuts and everything right across his shin.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the ankle injury.
Well, Achilles.
Yeah, your Achilles.
Yeah, the Achilles was a tough one, really, because it wasn't Achilles that popped and it goes and you have an operation, a rupture.
Yeah.
It was slow. It was slowly but surely, month after month, and I played with it for probably 2 years. And in the end, it was like a block of wood. In the end, felt like a block of wood. And to get up in the morning, just to go training, I used to have a hot bath, put it in a hot bath for 10 minutes to get it going, and then training, warm up, 10 minutes. It would be horrible. Going up on my toes, getting out of bed in the night if I had to go to the toilet. It was in agony in the end. And in the end, I had to have it done. I had to have the sheath. It was strangling the Achilles. Yeah. And had to have the operation where you release the sheath.
Did they try other treatments before that?
Not really, no. It was like inflammation, and I was on...
No steroid shots?
I had all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
I was on medication for anti-inflammatories, and because it was... And then the scar tissue it builds, doesn't it? It just builds up, and it just strangles it by all accounts. But it's a horrible pain, because it's a long, drawn... And I used to have a bit of comfort during the middle part of a game, and then by the end of a game, it would come back on again.
I was thinking it was agony after.
It was
game,
horrible.
wasn't it? Yeah,
it was dreadful.
Yeah.
And the ice bucket, used to put my leg in the ice bucket constantly, and it was in the end, as I said, that's why I missed the UEFA Cup final.
Yeah.
I played through the season and then messed it up trying to get back. 4 or 5 weeks after, Mike Varney said, "Do you want to have it?" I said, "Yes, we're in the final. I've got to take a risk." But I broke down. It wasn't ready.
That must have been.
Yeah, it was tough, But in the end, the way it felt, I was worried about my career rather than, it was a blow not being able to make the final. But I didn't play to the following September. So all through the summer, I was still rehabbing, because I'd done something to it. I damaged it on the ways, and I thought my career might have been over. But it was a horrible time. But it was a horrible sort of grinding sort of injuries.
Sometimes people say creaks almost.
It's creaking. It thickened like anything. It got thicker.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that, because one of the questions I was going to ask you when we were talking to you on another occasion about your heart issues, and we talked all about that side, but what we didn't talk about is how that might have affected you psychologically, and you did say something about it changed your attitude about some things, and how it affects your family and things, because it does change your attitude to life, some sort of big event like that. I mean, when you could have died, it's amazing, isn't it?
The expression I use, Glenn, is that there's the disease and then there's the dis-ease.
Exactly.
And there's we see patients who've had heart attacks. Very often the doctor can say, "I've replumbed your heart, you're tickety-boo, you're good to go." Yeah. But in the back of their mind, they have anxieties. They can't be active sexually. They have emotional disruptions to their life, even though the doctor can say, "You're fine," because they have those uncertainties. And, Nigel and I have known each other for donkey's years, and we have a very joyous approach to life. And strongly believe that people's recovery from illness or avoidance of illness is a large part how they view their life.
I've got to share this with people listening. If they're going to go through whatever they're going to go through, certainly if they have a cardiac arrest and have a quadruple or whatever it is, I literally, and I surprised myself actually, the day I came round, and then I had to have 10 days before I had the operation, and then I had a defibrillator put in as well. Yeah. So I was in there for about 5 weeks. And ever since afterwards, I literally handed over to the doctors, to the nurses, I had no anxiety, no real panic. I had a bit of depression, they tell me, because I think I was on the medication, but came through that. I never ever, when I went home, as you put your head back on the pillow, and I'd gone through what I'd gone through, you'd have thought I'd have had a bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
Not one night I've had an anxiety feeling with, what if that happens again? No, I've just embraced it in a way, and been totally not how I thought I would be, but I've just sort of given in and just gone, no, what will be, will be. I'm okay. I feel they've told me I'm fine, and just do what you got to do, guys, and I'll do what I've got to do, and hey ho.
That's fantastically releasing, actually.
Honestly, I can't express how surprised I was, but if there's anyone, out there and they're getting anxiety about any sort of thing, like the power of your mind and how you approach it. And I didn't set out to do it. It just it was a natural thing.
Glenn, there's a friend of mine, and she had breast cancer and had to have a double mastectomy and lymph node dissection and bone marrow transplantation and extensive chemotherapy.
Oh, dear.
And yet she says was the best thing that ever happened to her. She said up to that point, she'd half been living. Now she sucks. Yeah. Now she's fine. She's many years on and she's had a great recovery. But she views it as an opportunity to really carpe diem, really seize the day.
Yeah.
Glenn.
And you can only seize that within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But,
nobody can do it for you.
No, exactly.
And if these sort of conversations, exposing them to people, if that helps, as you said, if it helps one person, it's worthwhile. Want to be conscious of time, and thank you, Glenn, for coming to chat with us. It's always a joy to chat to you. Normally, we talk about our team and how things are going.
Normally, they drown in our sorrows.
Well, what do they say as a Tottenham supporter? We seize defeat from the jaws of victory.
That's right.
But, Glenn, you've been an amazing. You've brought a lot of joy to a lot of people over the years as a footballer, as a manager. as a singer, as the Masked Singer.
Ooh,
If you haven't seen that, check out
as a clock.
As a grandfather clock. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Well, especially when people come up to you now and you think, oh, they're going to ask for a photo and autograph. And the two little kids are standing next to and the mother goes, and the little boy turned to, I'll never forget it. It happened last summer. And he turned and he went, is it really the grandfather clock? All the things I've done in football, I'm the grandfather
They're
clock.
not all asking you the time.
Yeah, exactly right. So, for anyone listening, there's a recommendation, a YouTube recommendation. Your commentary. There's a favourite video, May 9th, 2019, Spurs away to Ajax, drawing 2-2 in the final minute of the Champions League semi-final. Lucas Moura scores the winner. You were commentating together with Gary Lineker and Rio Ferdinand, and the three of you, you're like, get in, and the three of you leap up. The joy was just
crazy.
Unbelievable.
Honestly, it was. That's what football can do to you. I've gone through what I've gone through, cardiac arrest. I was died and come back, and then you're mic'd up and you're thinking it's my club as well, Tottenham, and they score so late. The day after Liverpool come back from Barcelona, and we covered that game at BT, and you're thinking, well, it can't be again. We're 2-0 down.
We just beaten City.
Yeah,
because I was at City amongst the City fans. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
when we snipped
it was a spell of football during that month, really, where there was unbelievable games and unbelievable results and comebacks and all sorts of things. But we didn't really expect it, and suddenly this momentum in the second half, and then it was this ball goes in, and the reality. I can remember we all just jumped. I think my mic went everywhere, but I remember having a little bit of a rush to my head. I mean, there's me going through what I've gone through.
Just months before.
Yeah. So I actually got a rush, like you would do sometimes on the bench as a manager. Yeah. And I'm like, and the shock of it as well, but the exhilaration of Tottenham scoring and getting to a Champions League final. Fantastic. And then it hit me very quickly, emotionally. I got very emotional. They asked me the question when we had to settle down after the game. And I remember saying the quote, and I struggled to get it out, sort of thing. I said, I'm just so happy I'm still alive to see this, that they've got to the final. Yeah. Because I might not have seen it, hoping we were going to bloody win it, but we didn't, obviously. But it was such an emotional, and I had this, and then I remember getting texts from because it went viral pretty quickly. And then I'll get texts from my daughters saying, Dad, what are you doing?
Rio Ferdinand is reaching out to you saying, are you all right? Are you all right? Because he hit you like his arm.
He actually smashed me
in the chest.
Right in the heart. And I'm still a bit fragile. Imagine I had a quadruple bypass. So the scars weren't, still. But the funny thing about it, it was a great quote, I think. He goes like that. It goes inside my sort of jacket pocket. Yeah. And there was a little quote, you can take, it looked like he's nicking money out of his pocket. You can take the guy out of Peckham Beach.
Brilliant.
And it was brilliant.
Well, we'll have to talk to Rio about that. But,
it's a great picture.
We've mentioned, Glenn, earlier on, teaching people how to do CPR, using a song to sing in their head to get the rhythm right, 100 beats a minute, right?
Wow.
And what would your favourite song be?
Well, I think they've done a brilliant thing on the advert that they did with Vinnie Jones.
Yeah.
I'd like to say Diamond Lights or something, but it's not quite, they got that rhythm.
Had to change the rhythm, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you'd save too many people with Diamond
re-record
Lights. But Staying Alive, and the ironicness of the name of the song as well.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever did that, that's one of the best adverts.
Well, we got some other ones for you. If you don't want to say bye, 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 Nigel.
There's Achy Breaky Heart by Billy Ray Cyrus. That's enough to make you want to die.
Or Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh, dear.
And
it's lucky we've got a sense of humour about it.
Well, again, you've got to. Exactly. You can't be miserable.
I'm trying to think of one now. I'm trying to think of...
Well, I think you should re-record Diamond Lights.
You know what? Actually, we did a second song after Diamond Lights that didn't get released, and it was called Goodbye.
Good rhythm.
Well, you know something? If that's available, we'll put a link to that.
We will.
For sort of a more modern song, which my son Gabe brought to my attention, Childish Gambino, This Is America. So everyone, you would agree, I think, Glenn, learn CPR, adopt all the preventative measures we've discussed.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone out there, listen to Glenn's music, make a donation to the charity that he supports. Frankly, St. Bartholomew's Hospital, or frankly,
the Guild,
any cardiac charity, right?
Yeah, it's important.
And we'll put links on for that, won't we?
And we're also going to do, I haven't told you about this yet, but we're going to put something together with our resident artist, and we're going to auction it off. We'll get you to autograph it.
Oh,
we'll auction that off, and the money we raise we'll give to your charity.
To Bart's Guild.
Support people.
Fantastic. That'd be brilliant.
Thank you so much, Glenn, for joining us today.
No, pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Really good fun.
That's
good fun.
If you've enjoyed Join the Docs, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends. Visit our website at jointhedocs.com. You can get all sorts of additional material. You can get merchandise by our goofy resident artist, Robin Gott. And, of course, check out our social at Join the Docs, where you can write to us with suggestions or questions. And if you want to send insults, address them directly to Nigel. But as Glenn has suggested, stay happy, stay healthy, because we spend a long time dead. Bye for now.
Bye.